Okay, very good evening to all of you. So today's emphasis is on mass in the lumbar region. Obviously, it includes the renal mass as a priority, but other masses are also important from postgraduates. In fact, there was a request for this, so I thought we'll do it. Yes, that's how it is. From 53 to 2020, there is so much changes which have happened in Manipal Academy of Higher Education. So we'll also see now the most important few aspects about the lumbar mass and how also it has changed into so many differential diagnoses because of the variety of considerations. I think all of you know about the familiarity about this lumbar region. So I don't have to say that upper line and this is that going to the tubercle, transtubercular line. And of course, this is midway between the umbilicus and the xephisternum. So that's what is the lumbar region. If you see properly, lumbar region and in fact umbilical region, they are quite big. So lumbar because of this curvature, but however, it's also a big region. So what I'm trying to tell is something from above can come here and something from below also can go up very easily. Never to forget posteriorly, especially your case is a lumbar region mass. So that's why this picture has been shown to you, where there is a erector spinae and 12th rib. So this is the area of our interest. So that's the area where we have to check. So this slide is just to recollect your anatomy. I'm not going to discuss all about these various muscles, but just to tell you the posterior, that a lot of thick muscles are there. Latissimus dorsi, then if you look at further inside, there is psoas, quadratus lumborum. Erector spinae, of course, comes somewhere here in the center. So, and these are the oblique muscles come here. So this third picture is just to tell you, this is a psoas major and how it is coming down. That is inserted into the trochanter there. Now the thing is, the femur. The idea of showing this is rarely cold abscess can manifest there. So I shall not discuss too much about those issues, but just keep it in mind when you get a case. So now to quickly to recollect whatever we have talked. Mass arising from the anatomical structures which are not, normally present, and it can be normally not present. So that is how you try to discuss now. See here, anatomical structure which are normally present are classical. Everyone knows about the kidney, everyone knows about the ascending colon comes there, and even retroperitoneum. But those which are not normally present means something else, maybe anomaly. Anomaly is possible. So we'll come to that. And mass which I have extended, I have mentioned from above as well as from below, right? So this is what is our emphasis. Mainly colonic, ascending and descending, obviously right and left colon. And don't forget adrenals. You have a mass in the lumbar region because hypochondrium are very small quadrants. So there's every possibility of a adrenal tumor coming there. So gallbladder and liver is coming from above. Spleen obviously on the left side causes a little bit of diagnostic difficulty. When your tumor or a swelling does not match to neither colon nor renal system, always think of retroperitoneum. Of course, hepatobiliary, nothing it matches, so that means it is retroperitoneum. Female patient, don't forget ovary because it's possible. It can come out of the pelvis and grow. In that situation, it not only felt in a lumbar region, but also can be in the iliac fossa also. But this is what you should have a broader idea before you start. So this is what I meant by a case of a massive hepatomegaly metastasis. And you can see here there's umbilicus. So obviously, bulk of it is in the lumbar region as well as in the iliac fossa. So this type of cases I am not discussing with you because these have come from above down. So obviously you can't get that upper border here. You know, there's a costal margin there. Similarly, You have a mucosal of the gallbladder. Sometimes we have had big ones here. So there can be a one stone blocking the gallbladder and a big distended gallbladder, huge size. So we are not going to discuss about those two things, but from your point of view, when you get a case of a mass in the lumbar region, you have to consider all these possibilities, whether it is coming from above down. So I mentioned to you about adrenal tumors. Most of the functioning tumors, maybe you will have their symptoms. Classical example being a pheochromocytoma. Cushing's will don't get so big tumors, but one condition you get where there's a massive enlargement can be angiomyolipoma. It's a benign tumor, in fact. So you can retain a 10-15 centimeter size there, and it can be felt in the lumbar region. Almost can have some kind of a features like a renal system. So this is to be kept in mind when you discuss a mass in the lumbar region. No doubt they are not common. That is what we should try to understand. So then what is common? Like any other place, how you divide the disease into certain classification, that will help you sometimes. You think about congenital, correct? So there comes the polycystic kidney. So if you remember the classifications like that, oh, is it a congenital anomaly? Yes. That doesn't mean it is seen immediately. You know, it usually manifests later in life. Hydronephrosis, pelviureteric junction abnormalities. Maybe an aberrant vessel may be associated with that. Unascended kidney, this is something which you should know. Like we say, undescended testis and unascended kidney. And of course, some pathology arising from there. You have two inflammatory conditions here I mentioned to you. One, of course, acute, we are not going to discuss acute pyelonephritis, perinephric abscess, all those tender masses. No. But we are interested in chronic, especially ileocecal tuberculosis, where you get a pulled up cecum, correct? And the TB spine I mentioned to you can have a cold abscess formation. Of course, tracking along the nerve roots may have formed ileopsoas abscess, much lower, not truly in the lumbar region, but just keep it in mind. And of course, malignancy. When you say malignancy, obviously it's a renal cell carcinoma. We refer to renal cell carcinoma. So in other words, lumbar region, if you talk about kidney, from your discussion mainly on polycystic kidney, hydronephrosis, and renal cell carcinoma. If you think about the colon, as I mentioned, one is ileocecal tuberculosis, and it could be carcinoma of the ascending colon. Cecum, obviously, we discuss in the right iliac fossa. When both are not there, I mentioned to you, think of a retroperitoneum. In that, one is a sarcoma, or retroperitoneal tumors for that matter, and cystic swellings. So if you know this much, that comes about 8 or 9 differential diagnoses. That should be more than enough. I just brought to show you that this is left side, obviously. Lumbar region manifested at a very tender swelling, very tender with the fever. It was a ruptured diverticular perforation. So we'll just keep you informed that acute inflammatory conditions treated with the antibiotics can form a walled off like abscess like there. So it can also present in the lumbar region that we are not going to discuss here. So with this small introduction, you just want to take some, I am going to discuss today is like almost like a case presentation with the here and there deviation. So it will help you because you start from the first encounter, you see a child means it's mostly Wilms tumor, and obviously hydronephrosis can range 3 years, 10 years. I'm talking about the PUJ abnormalities. Polycystic kidneys are usually manifest, later, third decade, fourth decade, and renal cell carcinoma, elderly patients, and you would like to take the profession, whether they involve in industries, the exposure to cadmium, asbestos, some dyes like chloroethylene dyes. These are some of the factors which have been blamed. So that's what you say, name of the patient, age of the patient, what profession you are doing. So that's how you proceed with. And you are also going to take some later past history, etc. But always keep it in mind, some important risk factor. Diabetes is one of the risk factors for a renal cell carcinoma. Patients who are on dialysis for a renal failure, they are also vulnerable. And this one condition, hereditary condition, this von Hippel-Lindau, it can manifest as so many tumors, hemangioblastomas in the brain, spinal cord, retina. It can also have a bilateral RCC. So you have a younger patient with the renal cell carcinoma. Think of some abnormalities here. Similar trisomy cases, they also have described for the renal cell carcinoma. Of course, smoking is another risk factor. That's what you say, no? The history of smoking, all that you are going to ask later. So just to quickly to say that profession is important when you talk about this, and these are the risk factors. Yes. So now you have if you feel at this juncture patient is a 65, he would have got hematuria, means, oh, this could be renal cell carcinoma. So now you just try to think in the, work should go on now. What I'm going to ask this patient, is it pain, hematuria, loin mass? This is one tumor, easily can spread to bone. So any bony pains, any bony swellings, some of them may be in the scalp also, pulsatile. Of course, in a female with the pulsatile scalp means you would like to think of thyroid malignancies like follicular, etc. Or has he got anemia, polycythemia? So in other words, these theoretical aspects will help you to ask the questions, which are leading questions in your patient. So that's what you asked. Classically, hematuria is described as intermittent hematuria. So maybe one suddenly he finds some lot of blood is passed, but never it's massive, not like any other bladder tumors. So there can be a possibility. Abacterial acid pyuria, it can happen in tuberculosis. So I just want to keep you informed because we are taking like a case history. Frequency is one of the features of tuberculosis because of involvement of the urinary bladder. So then you ask for the pain. Typically it is felt costal and vertebral. That means it's felt anteriorly because kidney enlarges both anterior and posterior, and also posterior, that is the vertebral. So not truly in the vertebral body, but on the back. That's called as costovertebral. And thoracolumbar spine region. So if the patient has got a maybe having a TB spine at this stage, you don't know, we are taking the history, or it can be a metastasis. You have got a fever. What is this patient says, I have been having fever for last 1 month. One of the important manifestations of renal cell carcinoma is fever. It could be due to tumor necrosis or also a part of paraneoplastic syndrome. So that's sometimes it is missed. Patients are being evaluated so many times and they find miss. Today is easy because ultrasound will be asked in every patient to rule out an intra-abdominal abscess or a collection for fever. Then we pick up this. So that's the importance of the fever. It's called an internist tumor. The RCC is also called as internist tumor. Yes. Now that I mentioned to you colon. So in the lumbar region here, you got ascending colon. So you say simple question. Altered bowel habits is the better word in whichever way. Either you have constipation or a diarrhea or a blood loss, mucus. Blood loss and mucus is more from the right colon. These two are important to say that it could be malignancy, what we are dealing. Suppose a patient has got 45-year-old with these two means, oh, it could be malignancy. 45-year-old, but both weight loss is not there, appetite loss is not there, but there is a hematuria. Oh, it could be polycystic kidney. This is how you should try to think. Of course, the abdominal distension, that is the next part of it, can be due to a tumor itself or can be due to some other cause. That's what I meant by a typical posture. You can see the thumb is back. That's how the patient comes and tells you, I got, where is your pain? This is what is. This is costal and posterior is vertebral type of pain. That's the attitude of a patient who has got any renal tumors. So that's what it is. I gave you already the examples. Clot colic refers to when there is hematuria, blood formation, and the clot occurs, it produces more of a colicky type of a pain rather than a dull aching type of a pain. Left-sided colonic tumors, because we are talking about the lumbar region on the left side, yes, can give rise to colic pain, suggestion of an obstruction. Retroperitoneal sarcoma, I mentioned to you, typically are painless to start with. Unless they retain real huge size also, they are painless. So the reason why the patients come late to the hospital. Then what is the details crisis? So I mentioned to you that again, hydronephrosis, I'm talking about the PUJ, not the calculus hydronephrosis. It's usually a painless condition. However, what happens in a details? This is seen in calculus hydronephrosis, right? This is not PUJ. Once there is a severe colic, obstruction is there because the stone, pelvis enlarges, even a mass is palpable, there's some reflex pyuria, stone suddenly slips maybe, followed by passage of large amount of urine, a palpable mass which disappears. One of the common question which is asked, in addition to details crisis, you have that interception, and then in children we used to tell the worm ball, the worm ball obstruction was used to be common. Now we don't see much of those patients. Some of the tumors, which can appear and disappear. So not to forget the large pseudocyst sometimes rupture, either in the peritoneal cavity or sometimes in the adjacent structure. Can also, the tumor may disappear, but they will have different manifestation. So that's what, so you are going to ask all these questions. Do you have pain? Where is the pain? Is it back in front? Then is it a clot colic? You have got a hematuria, intermittent hematuria, or is it you have any severe pain, or do you have fever? I mentioned to you, or any backache, or any body pain, etc. So to say that it's RCC, then to say that colonic tuberculosis or colonic malignancy, altered bowel habits, fever, weight loss, abdominal distension can be due to ascites. So all that you'll ask to get some amount of history. Then I mentioned about distension. Why distension? One of the important condition I mentioned to you is the polycystic kidney. It's a typical bilateral disease. One fine day a patient will come, see the first manifestation itself is a polycystic kidney. So he doesn't even know, no hematuria, nothing. So that's due to obviously renal failure, and that's important thing to remember. And abdominal distension obviously can be due to hugely enlarged kidney or a paralytic ileus. Distension can also happen in a Wilms tumor, sometimes can be bilateral. So these are all the relationship of our important symptoms to the lumbar mass. So you have got now more or less at the end of the whatever history you have taken, hematuria is there, you bet on renal system. If hematuria is not there, you may have to consider intestine, means colon. Left is obviously descending colon, right is ascending colon. So altered bowel habits, etc. Tuberculosis means there is some kind of a evening laser temperature or night sweats, relatively younger patient. Now you have got a retroperitoneal sarcoma when both are not there. So this is how you analyze. Now this is what you look for, usual anemia. One of the important things in RCC, renal cell carcinoma, you get anemia in spite of there can be a very few drops of blood. So that's possible because of the defective erythropoietin production. Now it can be icterus, clubbing, etc., etc. But also here last two are important. Spine, as I mentioned to you, to rule out a TB spine for a lumbar mass, or could be a metastasis. Look for renal failure, uremic smell, that and coating of the tongue. Don't forget edema of the feet. Now, two reasons in your case. One, nephrotic syndrome can be a paraneoplastic syndrome of renal cell carcinoma. So you can get a pedal edema. One. Second explanation, a large tumors, retroperitoneal tumors, can compress on common iliac vein. Like we say, neurovascular bundle. and you can get a unilateral limb edema. So the importance of looking for edema in your case of lumbar mass. I just want all of postgraduates especially to always correlate the findings in your patient to the patient's diagnosis or the disease which you are offering. Suppose they ask you why edema, don't say congestive cardiac failure. You should know in your patient how to correlate the physical findings. That is important, right? So, flank, is it full? So what is the flank fullness means? It could be again a lumbar mass there. If any other findings are there, please explain to it. So if the mass is visible on inspection, you can always describe, because sometimes very large masses are there from the renal cell carcinoma or maybe from the polycystic kidney. But if this is not visible, then there is, don't manipulate and say mass is seen. It can be normal except the flanks. That's what I mentioned here, flanks. You may get a flank fullness and a vague fullness. So just say vague. Don't describe it as a mass. Yes, now you start palpating. As I mentioned to you, completion's sake, we don't keep tender masses. So tenderness means it's inflammatory, so we'll rule it out. And I think all of you know the typical abdominal palpation for any other mass, patient supine, gentle flexion at the hip and the knee, and that's how you start palpating. We are on lumbar region, so better to start from the iliac fossa and slowly go out, get all the details about this. Typical, all these findings, you should make a note of it. Apart from abdomen is soft, no guarding, no rigidity, a mass is palpable, etc., etc. We'll come to each one of the last three important things and everything in relation to today's case. So shape. Now why shape is important, especially for this lumbar I mentioned, because what happens is when you see carefully, sometimes a enlarged, you draw a nice sketch in your paper when you got a mass abdomen in your ward, it may have a shape of the kidney, typically described as a reniform shape, a very classical, no, renal cell carcinoma. It ruptures. Once it ruptures, it goes outside. So the kidney shape is maintained. Whereas Wilms tumor grows within, it doesn't rupture. So the shape is lost. That's another thing. And even a polycystic, you see, classically they will have a typical kidney shaped. That is what is important. I mentioned about this here gallbladder. You can see that mucocele can become big here. A horseshoe kidney, like a horseshoe. I just brought it to tell you the shape. Horseshoe kidney is not our consideration today in the lumbar region, but just to tell you the shapes of the different masses. In our case of lumbar region, this will be the finding of surface. A nodular surface up to 1 centimeter, you call them as a nodular. Very larger ones, maybe more than 2 or 3 centimeter, you call it as a bosselated surface, which typically happens in a polycystic kidney in the abdomen, very big nodules. So they are called as bosselated surface. Of course, it will usually bilateral. That's how it helps in your final diagnosis as far as the surface is concerned. As rightly mentioned, when the tumor is from the kidney, arises from the upper border. As such, if you see the kidney, it is under the 12th rib. So you cannot really make out the kidney on palpation. And when the tumor is arising from there, classically upper border of the kidney is not palpable unless it is actually unascended kidney. That's what is important. If the kidney is felt somewhere in the pelvis or a little high up, lumbar region, you can get the upper border. Otherwise, the classical case, it is not felt. Similarly, adrenals, colon, of course, all borders. So you got a case, all borders are well felt so nicely. Don't think of renal system. Don't think of adrenal. It's mostly colon or maybe retroperitoneum, etc. Irregular borders obviously suggest malignancy. Now consistency, obviously hard in renal cell carcinoma or colon, tense, that typically polycystic. And one thing you should remember, however big the cyst, you can get a feeling of tensely cystic, your finger may yield. better to say they are firm swellings, but it could be tensely cyst. That is the better word to mention. The two important things which is to make a diagnosis of any malignancy in general, whether it's a RCC, carcinoma or retroperitoneal tumors, is the mobility and a fixity. That's what you should know. Carcinoma colon or renal cell carcinoma, in general, they have got a restricted mobility and fixity. And some benign swelling may not be in this patient, may be fibromatosis. They are all in benign swellings, but they don't move. They are quite hard also. Fibromatosis especially, it gets fixed. So that's an important thing. As you're palpating, you got some gurgle. This is in addition to size, shape, surface, border, consistency, mobility, fixity. We'll come to the plane of the swelling, and you got some gurgle, means it just says there is air, that's all. Now you have to explain. If it is so much air, means bowel is anterior, means it could be retroperitoneal tumors. Colonic mass, if it's a solid tumor, very difficult to get the gurgle because it's a tumor. Inside there may be air. But if the anterior wall is devoid of the tumor, there is a possibility. In tuberculosis, you may get this. And of course, one thing always remember, when you are palpating a gurgle and there is a mass is contracting, of course, the presentation of these patients are different. It's a intussusception. So it's important. So just to keep it in mind, what is the importance of the gurgle? What it means is the air. We typically say that intraperitoneal liver, spleen, stomach moves with respiration, but kidney's posterior structure, we say kidney is in the kidney region. A Geroda fascia encloses it, fuses and blends with the diaphragm, which explains that movement with the respiration, but it's not a very free movement, a little bit of up and down movement on deep inspiration. You do get in a kidney. Because the problem that comes is on the left side to differentiate a renal from the spleen. There are a few more tests which are important to diagnose a renal mass, and one of them is a typically bimanual palpation, and second one is a ballotable. Now, why this is bimanually palpable? The reason is simple, because it's peripheral place swelling. Loin or a lumbar region is peripheral. There's no place in the subcostal for the both hands to be used, neither in the iliac fossa nor in the center. The only place is lateral, that is the flank region. So both hands can be used there. So just when there's a liver is grossly enlarged, spleen is enlarged, ascending colon, descending colon, renal mass, if theoretically, including spleen for that matter, you can get a bimanual palpation because when they are very huge. But in the spleen, it is not possible because spleen's direction is obliquely along this, that perpendicular to the ribs. So it doesn't grow that much in the lumbar region. It goes more towards the umbilical region and down. But just for you to get informed that large masses of ascending and descending colon, both can be palpable bimanually. But then the important test to differentiate them is the ballotability, like which you have. Keep a hand behind and then toss it. It goes up and hits and comes back. So that's what is ballot means, to toss. So that's how you start the palpation of kidney there under the costal margin there, and slowly come down here if the mass is enlarged. And that's in the posteriorly, your one whole hand has gone, is anteriorly, and give a thrust movement upwards, and you will be able to get a what's called as bimanual palpation and ballotability. So you can see here, my one hand is anterior and I'm gently pressing anteriorly. You need to have a space between the abdominal wall anteriorly. One of the important criteria, if the tumor like a retroperitoneal sarcomas are so huge, there's no place at all for them to ballot. Ballot means to toss. So only when there is a space, I can press it from behind to ballot the swelling. So we say ballotability is possible. Why it is ballotable? Because the kidney enlarges both anteriorly as well as posteriorly. It's peripheral, it has got a pedicle, and it has got a perirenal pad of fat. Gently remember this piece there. Posterior enlargement, peripheral enlargement, pedicle structure important, perirenal pad of fat. So that is what is important to so remember that why kidney is ballotable, spleen is not ballotable. It's so much close to the costal margin when it is enlarges. You cannot make, there's no space at all to ballot. A pedicled organ is important, peripheral enlargement, and kidney enlarges both anteroposterior. That's how you say that this structure is a kidney. So other details I think you should examine. It may be tuberculosis in your case. That's ileocecal tuberculosis. It will have a firm, irregular, or even a nodular mass. Having mobility, that's how you make a diagnosis. You may have to look for ascites. Liver palpation is also important for the other masses. That's how you rule out one by one. And yes, importance of rectal examination. Obviously, it could be a left-sided colonic malignancy, you may get some bleeding. I mentioned here for completion's sake, you may be wondering why I brought ovary into discussion here. It's possible in a young patient with a large ovarian tumor which has come out of the pelvis and with the formation of a mass in the lumbar region. And even sometimes a lower border may be palpable because of long pedicle. But such tumors are also can be felt with the bidigital palpation or bimanual palpation, and with the pressing the cyst from above down, you may be able to feel it in the fornix. Of course, the retrovesical deposits for a Blummer shelf deposit. Now you make the patient sit. Kidneys, as I mentioned to you, enlarge both anteriorly as well as posteriorly. Make the patient sit, and that's what I'm looking is actually the renal angle. That's actually Murphy's renal punch test. You know, just press there. So that's called as Murphy's renal punch test. So little bit of jabbing movements there. So you just press there and look for any tenderness, and that's classical of a any inflammatory pathology or any large one. Don't forget to percuss. This is especially more important on the left side because normally there is a resonant node because of colon. When the kidney is enlarged, it displaces the colon. Whereas when the spleen is enlarged, it doesn't displace the colon. So this importance of percussion is more for the left side, but you can also do on the right side for colonic band of resonance, which get displaced in whenever there's a kidney is enlarged. Now, what are the other examinations? You have done the rectal examination, you have done the kidney, both in the supine position as made the patient sit, and testis has to be examined in, obviously, that's what I mean by genitalia, any abdominal mass. As I mentioned to you, anomaly I mentioned to you, undescended testis, totally intra-abdominal, can give rise to a large seminoma, and it was felt in the iliac fossa as well as in the lumbar region. Basically, as I mentioned in the initial part only, the clue is no testis. So obviously, so it's important that the examination should be complete to rule out a condition of the testis which is not supposed to be there. So that is a undescended testis, and obviously a tumor, and that is seminoma. Left-sided renal cell carcinoma, sorry. It's important to rule out a varicocele. So you have to make the patient stand. Take this opportunity in all abdominal examination. You rule out a hernia, that has to be done in the standing position. So in your patient, you feel for the cord at the root of the scrotum, make the patient to cough, and that's what they feel as bag of worms and some kind of a fluid thrill-like. So that's what it, don't say it's expansal impulse. It's not called as expansal impulse. That's only in a hernia. This is a varicocele, bag of worms, typically left-sided, more common. That's because of the testicular vein joins directly the renal vein. So that is the importance of checking for the varicocele, more so on the left side. Yes, this is what you do, the complete examination, and you come to a diagnosis. A quick recall for all of you, keeping in mind renal cell carcinoma, because people wanted the renal mass predominantly. I only modified as lumbar region mass, because no patient will come and tell I have got a renal mass. So it's important. But having made the diagnosis of a renal mass, like intermittent hematuria, middle-aged or a 60 years old man, dragging pain, typical kidney, hard nodular, bimanually palpable and ballotable, upper border cannot be made out. Now go back and check at the end. Some of things you might not have seen properly. Whether the patient had fever, I mentioned about the pyrexia, it's called internus tumor, pallor, pedal edema, pressure when I say hypertension, blood pressure. Did you check the blood pressure? It can be due to a compression on a large tumor on the renin-angiotensin system itself, renal ischemia, pedicle can be affected by the tumor. So, is there a polycythemia, a palpable mass, pulsatile secondary? Have you forgotten? Have you checked for the fractures? Fractures, obviously, patient will complain of severe pain and paraneoplastic syndromes. This is a quick recall for you, a 10-piece to remember renal cell carcinoma. This should be there with you so that you know what you have missed. So with this, now you come to a diagnosis, and what are the diagnosis? As I mentioned to you in the beginning of the class, my concentration is only on these three, but those big threes which are coming from above, liver, gallbladder, adrenal, no, I have not considered at all. But first you rule out this. That is what is important. So as I mentioned to you, that renal is important, colonic is important, next is retroperitoneal. So why kidney? Simple things. So you should be able to freely mention about the location and the growth, because it can grow up and down. Whereas spleen, I mentioned to you, especially for the left side, its direction of the ribs, you know, the lower ribs. So 7, 8, 9. So now you know the direction, how it comes down. So perpendicular to the line of direction of the ribs. And bimanual palpable, ballotable, a unique feature of a renal system. Little movement with the respiration. Spleen has got a big movement and a notch. I bring spleen into discussion because it's for the left side, obviously. And when enlarged, upper border cannot be felt. Now, what about the anatomical variations? It can be felt in the pelvis. So that means to say, if there's a tumor arising from the pelvic kidney, it may jet into the lumbar region. You can still get the upper border. Is it clear? That's what I meant by an unascended one. Not all cases you may get a bimanual, especially ballotability. That's because, as I mentioned to you, to have a ballot means to toss. You need a space. You need a good space anteriorly. Or it may be a big one which is fixed. And so it is not possible. That means everything white is not milk. So you, if these are present, you have no doubt. But you should be ready to answer these questions in the examination. In your patient, you do not have a ballotability. So how will you explain? That's how you explain. I think why colon, that's not difficult. If at all a colon will have a colonic symptoms, lumbar mass, and lumbar mass from the ascending colon, or maybe from the descending colon. So it will have more transverse mobility. It's difficult to move them vertically, right? And large ascending colon tumors, descending colon tumors. You might have heard of stromal tumors. They can be bimanually palpable, but definitely not ballotable. And as I mentioned to you, if there's significant air, they will have a resonant note. Your patient has got neither colonic symptoms nor renal symptoms. I mentioned to you, then always think of a retroperitoneal tumors, typical around 30, 40 years of age. Slow growing tumors can have even 2 years duration, 3 years duration, especially liposarcomas. Large, by the time they manifest, you know that they're a significant big tumor. So what are the things there? maybe you can get the borders, but all borders difficult to appreciate because they are coming from the depth. Try to understand the retroperitoneum. Doesn't matter about what structure, whether it's neural tumors or a liposarcoma. And by and root, they do not move the respiration. And of course, not bimanual palpable because they do not occur too much on the flanks. But important ones are the last one, which I have given you here, clues. Epidermolyma, unilateral varicose veins in the thigh, not in the leg, not the lower down. These are called unusual varicosity. Also called as secondary varicosity, like in a female, a vulval varicosity. That means to say this could be arising from the retroperitoneum. So in the given case, let's sum up now and decide, is it a kidney? Is it colon? Is it retroperitoneum? I don't think there is any difficulty. I have answered these questions. And I mentioned already, whenever you, in the examination, has it come from above? So liver, gallbladder, adrenal. Has it come from below up? Rarely I mentioned about the ovarian cyst, especially in a female. It can really come out in the pelvis with a long pedicle. Even a lower border can be felt. So that's why I said about the vaginal examination. So I already told you now what are the things, anatomically which organ and why, and 3 diagnoses always to be kept in mind for kidney, colon, and retroperitoneum, either it's a tumor or a retroperitoneal cyst. So renal mass and ascending colon mass, how to differentiate. I have already given you what are the features of a colonic mass. As I mentioned to you, the most important thing is the ballotability is not there, correct? Whereas ballotability is a feature of a renal mass. Ascending colon mass. See, please remember in the examination, when they ask you the differential diagnosis, you should speak symptom-wise, why it is colon. But sometimes they'll ask you, forget about symptoms. You talk now only from the signs. When they ask you about the signs, then these are the things which will help you. If it is a mobile mass, little higher place, it can go for a tuberculosis. If it is a hard and fixed with the tumor, it could go for an ascending colon. How to differentiate a renal mass from retroperitoneal mass? As I mentioned to you, theoretically both are in the retroperitoneum, but we don't say. When there's a retroperitoneal tumor, when you say kidney is not included under retroperitoneum. It's called as renal place, lumbar region. So here renal masses mainly in the lumbar region, but retroperitoneum is not like that. It's a huge structure. So it can go above, it can go below, it can go side. So many structure, large size. Large ones, difficult. I mentioned about bimanual palpation, but definitely retroperitoneal tumors are not ballotable. Here it is ballotable. And I mentioned to you, intestines can be resonant, so you may get a resonant note. So these are the points. So you should be able to quickly tell why colon, why kidney, why retroperitoneum. Similarly, what are the pathology which you are going to see. So with this now, we'll go on to the differential diagnosis of each one of them. So if there are any questions, I will take 1 or 2 questions, whatever we have discussed up to now about the anatomical diagnosis and pathological diagnosis. You can unmute one of you and can ask question related to clinical examination and the diagnosis.
Good evening, sir. Dr. Geeta from Dubai.
Oh, nice to see you. Yes.
Nice to see you, sir. It was very nice presentation.
Oh, still it is continuing. If there is any doubts, I am asking. So up to now, we have come to the differential diagnosis. So thank you. Thank you.
Nice seeing you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now we will move on to, we say that we have proved that it is a kidney. You know, we already discussed about that, why kidney. So you are no doubt about that because patient had hematuria. Now how to differentiate between these two is not difficult. Look at the age here, unilateral. I put in a bold here, polycystic is bilateral. In fact, it was my MS exam case. So how carefully you should palpate the other side. One side it was big, another side it was small. So the clue is younger patient, and see that enlargement, massive. They also can have hypertension. Hematuria of the cyst ruptures in the pelvis is more common in RCC. Of course, you'll have other features, nodular, irregular, etc. So it should be a combination of everything, starting from the age of the patient, and you examine the patient, bilateral disease, firm or variable, and they go for renal failure features if they are present. It is that diagnosis is polycystic kidney, otherwise renal cell carcinoma. Now, what about the hydronephrosis? The hydronephrosis which I am talking here is the pelviureteric junction abnormalities. It is not the calculus hydronephrosis or a benign prostatic hypertrophy, etc. So these patients are relatively young, 10 years or a 15 year or even 20-year child brought with the renal swelling. Usually it can also be bilateral, palpable mass, densely cystic, and not common to get the renal failure. But polycystic, I already mentioned to you, they are much bigger nodules. That's why they are called as bossulated. Hypertension, hematuria, bilateral disease, middle age, common for a polycystic. So according to the renal diagnosis, when you give renal cell carcinoma, polycystic kidney, hydronephrosis, 3 things to be kept in mind. That's more than enough. Unusual rare things are not very important. So 3 diagnoses as far as kidney is concerned. 3 diagnoses as far as the intestine is concerned. I mentioned carcinoma of the ascending colon or descending colon, tuberculosis, and any others for that matter, stromal tumors I mentioned to you, retroperitoneal tumors and retroperitoneal cysts, other possibility. And I mentioned few that cases coming from above and coming from below. So how to do the investigation? Now your patient is with you. We don't know right now whether it's a renal mass or a colonic mass. I am talking in that angle. What are the things which you will ask? And it will give you a clue. If you look at the blood, if there's a polycythemia, it is a clue. Or it could be RCC. Stauffer syndrome is something which is described, not AST-ALT, there's a ALP. Alkaline phosphatase is increased. GGT also in case of a non-metastatic liver disease which responds after a nephrectomy. Enzyme elevation can also happen, obviously in tuberculosis also here. High creatinine value indication of a renal failure, and the investigation of a choice is obviously ultrasound. It is the one investigation which is extension of the surgical arm. Very good diagnosis for a solid or a cystic lesion, kidneys, cysts, hydronephrosis, all this can be easily diagnosed. So one of the important things is to use, this is the question sometimes they ask you, what kind of a transducer you are using, and solid, cystic, all the details which you can make out. Cysts are usually anechoic, oval, smooth structure. That's how you say ultrasound. That's the typical. You can see here, there's a mixed pattern here, iso as well as hyperechoic, a diagnosis of a heterogeneous lesion of a renal cell carcinoma. Now, ileocecal tuberculosis and retroperitoneal tumors, both are appearing solid. I am talking about ultrasound. Again, hypoechoic lesions may be present here, but lymph nodes, ileal thickening, it goes more for a intestinal tuberculosis. You don't find that in a retroperitoneal sarcoma. There are 2 other benign renal tumors you should know. It is to be kept in mind, not at all to give as a clinical diagnosis, but they are oncocytoma as well as angiomyolipoma. This also happens in adrenals. I mentioned to you in the initial stage, they can present as a big masses, but they are benign tumors. If there is a suspicion by ultrasound about the benign tumor, then obviously next you go for a CT scan. When you ask for a CT scan, like any other protocol today, every disease has got a certain specific protocols. I'm not going to the depth, but just to say you that you need to take more slices, 2.5 to 5 mm, and before the contrast, then you give the contrast and then take the pictures. This is especially useful, especially when you are planning for a partial nephrectomy, nephron sparing nephrectomy. So these are because to know the arterial anatomy. So just to know the little more details about the CT protocols in a renal cell carcinoma. What is the advantage of the CT scan? Location, size, shape, irregularity. Is the capsule involved? Fascia of Geroda is involved. Has it ruptured? You know the TNM staging, it goes outside the capsule. IVC is involved. The disease is below the diaphragm or above the diaphragm. All the details can be made out by the CT scan, because today it is the TNM staging. That's how it helps in the diagnosis. No tumor markers for the renal cell carcinoma. More importantly, as I mentioned to you, involvement of the inferior vena cava. Renal cell carcinoma is a highly vascular tumor. Tumor grows within the renal vein and causes thrombus in the vein as well as in the inferior vena cava. So it's important to inform or take the help of a cardiovascular surgeon who can open the inferior vena cava and extract the embolus. So we have to get ready for all these details whenever you do a CT scan. And also any lymph node which is larger than 2 centimeter means it should be considered as a metastatic tumor. All the details you can make out by CT scan, not by ultrasound. That's the CT scan here. So you can see there's a tumor there. This is polycystic kidney. Can you see this homogeneous appearance here? Both kidneys are grossly enlarged. Now this is a heterogeneous mass. You can see here both renal cell carcinoma, bilateral renal cell carcinoma. So that's an important thing. Intravenous pyelography is not done. You can see by CT scan and ultrasound the thickness of the cortex. And if you have, you can also do a DTPS scan to know the functioning of the kidney. So IVP is usually not done. This is just to show you hydronephrosis. And again, this is for the interest for the postgraduates. They grade the hydronephrosis according to the 10 mm, 20 mm, 30 mm. Accordingly, you call it as the mild, moderate, or even a severe grade. Completion's sake about the intestinal tuberculosis, because I am discussing like a lumbar mass. This is your finding with a mass. You can see the intestines there, thickening of the intestines, typical of a intestinal tuberculosis. Of course, a large mass in the lumbar and iliac fossa, that was a carcinoma of the cecum. Look at this tumor on the left side. This lady came only with the swelling in the lumbar region. In fact, one of the early diagnoses of a postgraduate made in this patient was a renal cell carcinoma clinical diagnosis. But it did not have ballotability. See, you can see the large one. But as soon as you put your finger, it was palpable there. And it obviously turned out to be a retroperitoneal sarcoma, liposarcoma, smooth homogeneous mass there. Look at the lower end. How much is the size of this? So that's what I meant by retroperitoneum is so much space is there, it can enlarge in a huge direction. So one of the few commonly asked questions, will you do biopsy in a retroperitoneal sarcoma? The general answer is no, because of many reasons. We talk about seeding, spillage, vascularity. But if you suspect a lymph nodal mass, especially the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or a Hodgkin's, you have no other nodes to pick up for the diagnosis. Or if you have contemplated a neoadjuvant chemoradiation before surgery, obviously in a sarcoma, you do it. Otherwise, no. Differentiation can be made out by true cut biopsy. But always remember, before you put a needle in the lumbar region masses or even for that matter hypochondrium, a pheochromocytoma can present as a big mass and it may create a real crisis. So you should make up your mind sure that you always rule out a pheochromocytoma. Basically, FNAC or TrueCut is not recommended for a retroperitoneal sarcoma. Will you do a biopsy in a renal cell carcinoma? Today, with the standard imaging protocol which is available, you can look into the artery, arterial anatomy, venous system, lymph nodes, fascia, etc. It is usually not done. Again, for this fear, because imaging is so specific, but for some reason, if you feel it is an unresectable solid renal mass, or a very, very poor risk patient for a major surgery, or you want to do a nephron sparing but less than 4 centimeter, sometimes a very rare situation only you do a renal mass biopsy. Otherwise, always remember a question which is asked, a mass which is palpable, renal cell carcinoma, will you do a biopsy? Answer is no. For the sake of postgraduates only, it's called a Bosniak classification of various cystic masses. They can ask you this question because today incidentalomas are quite common. You do ultrasound, sometimes you read a cyst, cortical cyst. They will give size. But this is what is important here, like a Beirat's category. The category 4 is a complex masses with the solid and cystic. They are the one who have to undergo definitely some kind of a nephrectomy. 3 is indeterminate. That's a partial. So those who are interested can refer. That's the Bosniak classification of renal cystic masses. So today I mentioned renal cell carcinoma diagnosis is by clinical and imaging. Treatment obviously is radical nephrectomy or extended for a transitional cell carcinoma. Please remember, my interest today is not to talk about details about the treatment for carcinoma of the renal cell carcinoma, but this is the talk mainly about the lumbar mass. So if you suspect a carcinoma of the colon, what will you do? Don't say percutaneous biopsy, etc. Because examiners will take you, one candidate, they may ask about renal, another may ask you suddenly, no, your patient is carcinoma ascending colon. Obviously, colonoscopic biopsy is the gold standard. Then you assess for metastatic workup. Again, even in kidney and here, no role, initial role for a PET scan. But if you suspect tuberculosis, yes, colonoscopy, you have to enter the ileum biopsy. But I brought this only to tell you, don't forget CBNAT, cartridge-based nucleic acid amplification test. That has to be done in all patients who undergo biopsy for tuberculosis. This is not done routinely. Barium studies show you to hyperplastic variety with the pulled up cecum. So most of the talk is over. I am coming quickly to another few slides to quickly to tell about the renal masses. A typical renal mass which patient has undergone nephrectomy. That's a transitional cell carcinoma. Nephrouretrectomy has been done. And hydronephrosis, what will you do? If it is a stone, means you have to remove the stone, calculus hydronephrosis. Strictures have to be dilated. If there's a prostate, means prostatectomy has to be done. Various causes are there, but important ones. What you should know is, if there's a thin cortex, thick cortex, this is because extrarenal pelvis, cortex is preserved. This is intrarenal pelvis, more damage here. So the one commonly asked is a dismembered pyeloplasty. There are many examples, but gold standard, most of the patients or most of the surgeons do Anderson-Hines pyeloplasty, where the principle is only 3 here. So much pelvis is there, see there? That has to be removed. Disconnect the PUJ, disconnection. You have completely divided it now, dismembered. And then what do you do? Third one, anastomosis in such a way it drains by even by gravity. So large one, redundant, you excised, you divided it and just refashioned it in such a way you give a nice pyeloplasty. That's a dismembered, and that's the criterias. Foley also has described, Foley's catheter, everyone knows that's the criteria. Foley also has described a pyeloplasty, and there are others called a membered pyeloplasties, which are of not very significant. That's another one which is mentioned, which is nowadays, which is not being done. Those of you are interested can refer. What do you do for polycystic? Yes, that's a large cyst you can make out. Hypertension has to be treated. Once the polycystic is done, now the important thing is the counseling for a renal transplantation. Of course, if there's a renal failure, you do dialysis. Wilms tumor, of course, not beyond my area, but just to know that the prognosis is not good if they manifest late, as well as hematuria. Nephrectomy obviously is the treatment. And I think colonic masses, all of you know, carcinoma of the colon requires a radical surgery and or a bypass, and tuberculosis, limited colectomy. That's, I think, all of you know. Then what do you do for retroperitoneal tumors? Whenever a carcinoma is asked, especially retroperitoneal, see a breast, etc., please use the word multidisciplinary approach, number one. These are all the tumors which are difficult. You know, they are coming from the depth there. So R0 resection is the main aim. There's a margin negative resection. There may be intestine, there may be ureter there, paravertebral region, muscles, nerves, etc. So some of them may make it inoperable, or R0 may not be possible. At least put the clips there and come out. So debulking also may not be possible. So with this in mind now, I'll just quickly go to one or two case capsules. Dr. Radhakrishna.
Yes, sir.
If any students want to ask any questions about the mass in the lumbar region, they can ask. After this, I have got only 5 minutes for these two case capsules.
Yeah, please request the students to come up and ask questions if anything.
Any questions? Any doubts?
Yeah, your lectures are always very clear and very understandable, sir.
So we'll go.
They generally don't have any.
Just I'll go to one good case capsule. At
Yes,
least can some student, if PG is there, they can present. I'll help them just for a practice. It just takes 3 minutes. That's all.
Please, one of you volunteer and come. Unmute and come, please.
Okay, I think this I brought to just watch this carefully. This lady, 45 years, comes with a mass there. She has no hematuria, no bowel symptom, but carefully watch it. Flank is full. This is umbilical region. Obviously, this area is the lumbar region, umbilical region, even hypochondria. But remember, this is on the left side. So it's no doubt you think of a kidney, but no hematuria, bimanually not palpable, bimanually not palatable, right? So that's what it is, painless, occasional back pain. So she says sometime while pressing it. And she said once she vomited, large one, might have had a hemorrhage, so she vomited. And examination, it's 15 by 10, 15 horizontal, 10 vertical, oval, all borders made out, left flank is full, right? See, this is how the case. So nobody will tell you, I have got a renal mass, examine, or lumbar mass, no colonic symptoms at all, no hematuria. So these are the true cases. And this is the mass direction. Surface is smooth, borders are round, upper border could be made out. So spleen is ruled out. Kidney, to say, I mentioned to you, bimanually not palpable and palatable. So consistency was a bit firm. I mentioned yielding and had mobility, right? See that? And this turned out to be cystadenoma pancreas. The purpose of showing you this is you need to know common sense and to know, as I mentioned, if it is not kidney, not colon, not retroperitoneum, what structures would have come here? I purposefully did not mention this because this is on the left side. Right side, I told you, kidney, liver, adrenals, gallbladder. But I did not mention specifically to mention the pancreas has to be considered for a mass there, large cystadenoma of the pancreas, right? Now look at this. Look carefully about these two masses. I showed you about cystadenoma, correct? Now look at this lady. Obviously, there's a lot of difference. This is not only in the umbilical region here, flank also is there, but also it's gone down, you know, almost iliac fossa. This was not at all a cystic swelling, but it was having tenderness, pain, gurgle. It was a Spigelian hernia. I just want you to understand how the situations will come. Look at this patient, but this is obviously above the umbilicus. This is below the umbilicus, partly encroaching on the lumbar region. So this is to be kept in mind. So now with this, another patient. Look at this 28-year-old lady, this umbilicus. So this is lumbar region, partly into the iliac fossa. You can see this mass, painless growing, and it was also, mass was mobile, both directions, 10 centimeter round in shape. See here. Again, no hematuria, no colonic symptoms, nothing. So lower border is so easily felt. So don't think of ovary, as I mentioned to you. Rare possibility there, but don't think, but look, I have drawn the mesenteric line here. Not to tell you mesenteric cyst, but mesenteric cyst won't come up to this flank. Look at this location here. So, and that's how it is. And that turned out to be a retroperitoneal lymphatic cyst. That's what it is. So, lastly, to complete that, why you want to examine the genitalia in the female, sometimes they will ask you this question. So, in all patients, we have already talked about this loin, etc. I did not mention about external genitalia role in men is important, but in a female, it's not important. When I say genitalia refers to, only I said vulval varix are possible and a PV examination. So that's how it is. So retroperitoneal cyst, mesenteric cyst, large cyst. This is how it is. When you have a cystic lesion as diagnosis, your diagnosis should be based on summary of the symptoms and signs. So here it is obviously looking like a benign lesion, tensely cystic swelling. So retroperitoneal cyst, mesenteric cyst, renal possibility, and rarely ovarian cyst. So this is how, and we explored this. You can see here, this is a colon. This cecum and ascending colon is moved here. It has pushed. That's what I said. Here it was dull, and here it is resonance. I said when the retroperitoneal swelling appears, it gives a resonant note. That was the cyst which was excised. So completion's sake, I mentioned to you about the large ovarian cyst. So that's how it is. These are the various references, and that's what to say. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Dr. Radhakrishna, I would like to tell you my earlier colleague, Dr. Geeta, she is in Dubai. She is actually, she is here now. She is watching, and she is actually expert in the breast cases. She's in Dubai.
Okay, okay. Nice to hear that, sir. And as usual, a very, very clear, nice, illustrative lecture. Rishabh, you have a question or something? Anybody want to have a comment or a question to Dr. Shenoy before we conclude? So it's a so no more questions. I'll close the session, sir. Thank you so much for all your effort. And I have only one question, sir.
Yes.
That is unrelated to this. Actually, we started doing a series called Best Friends Forever. Two friends talking to each other. Then I was wondering whether you and Dr. Dayanand Babu will fit into a best friend category.
No problem.
So the coming Saturday evening, 8 o'clock, if both of you are free, I just want you to have a chat of how you spend time together, what you like in each other, and how your friendship grew.
You are talking about our Professor Dayanand Babu from Trivandrum.
Yes, because I see both of you in photographs together in every conference.
I know he is my friend, philosopher, and he is my senior person, and he is my well-wisher. No problem.
I'll talk to him also. So we'll
Yes.
have a coming Saturday.
Right, sir. Okay.
Thank
sir.
you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.